We'll now speak to Alon Pinkas, who's a former Consul General of Israel in New York, joining us from Tel Aviv. Mr. Pinkas, thanks for your time. What's your reaction to this development?
It's very unfortunate. It's tragic. It is sad. It is, deflating. All that said, it was also very predictable. Mr. Netanyahu indicated before his trip to Washington that he does not have any intentions of moving on to phase two. The moment he made it clear that he has no intention of moving to phase two, that put into question phase one. Then he went to Washington and stood by President Trump, who came up with his Gaza Riviera idea that includes expelling 2.3 million Palestinians. Fast forward to today, in an interview on Fox News, he said that they will not be able to return to Gaza. So that adds another dimension to this. And so it was only a matter of time before someone figured out that if phase two is not going to happen, then perhaps phase one is questioned or is questionable, or the implementation of it becomes questionable.
Okay, let's just break this down into two parts for a moment. I'd like to first talk about the reaction from within Israeli politicians and how much support Netanyahu would have for this. And then I'd just like to ask you about the Israeli public.
Okay, as for the Israeli public, Doreen, because you just asked, and I just came back physically, literally, from Hostage Square, which is why I was late joining your program. There are more and more people coming. There are a few thousand there. I expect that to increase in the next few hours. The public reaction is very angry, very livid against Mr. Netanyahu, by the way, not against Hamas, not against the agreement, but against Mr. Netanyahu for doing what they think he's doing. As for the politicians, well, that needs to be divided into two. He has his coalition, which is made up of sycophants and vertebrates. And so there's no expectation of any kind of pushback from that part of politics. And then there's the opposition, which has kept completely quiet in the last 2 or 3 hours. So in terms of the political arena, Doreen, I don't expect anything dramatic to happen. In terms of the public pushback, it remains to be seen, but I would not be surprised, and I say this mildly, I would not be surprised to see a very intense, very angry, very broad pushback against Netanyahu in the next 24 hours.
Okay, look, we do have some reaction that's come in from Ben Gvir, and he said this, and this is a reaction to the statement that was put out by Al-Qassam Brigades. He said that Hamas's announcement should have one real-life response, a massive fire attack on Gaza from the air and land, alongside a complete halt to humanitarian aid to the Strip. And that's just part of the statement. It does go on. How seriously should we be taking these comments? And what's your reaction to such remarks?
Okay, I beg your forgiveness, Doreen, and that of the viewers for what I'm going to say. But Mr. Ben Gvir is an ignoramus idiot whose opinions warranted some a reaction when he was in the government. Now that he's out of the government, although that may change, I don't think there's any reason to take him seriously. He's an incendiary, insightful with a C personality who is a pyromaniac. He's here to create war. He's here to influence war. He's here to remind Netanyahu politically that if he wants his government to survive, then he needs the extreme right wing. And that doesn't change what I said at the outset. And again, I beg your forgiveness for saying what I said about, in a non-television-like language. But this is really absurd and a blasphemy to even take him seriously.
Okay, Alon Pinkas, former Consul General of Israel in New York, we thank you for speaking to us from Tel Aviv this hour.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.